Greetings. My name is Devendra Das Sarma. I am excited to participate in SDC EMEA conference. Hope everyone is staying safe and healthy. I will talk about how LoadStore IO is evolving to meet the needs of compute and storage infrastructure. Here is the agenda for today. We will talk about interconnects, especially LoadStore interconnects, as an important pillar in the compute and storage landscape. Then we will talk about the evolution of LoadStore interconnects. We will talk about Compute Express Link or CXL standard, which is poised to be a game changer. We will discuss in depth how CXL as an open interconnect slot will drive innovations in the memory and storage space. I will muse a bit about possible future directions. Now, in the spirit of full disclosure, these are my thoughts and I do not have a crystal ball. The picture here shows interconnects at different levels at the data center or cloud infrastructure looking outside in. Other segments such as edge computing or on-premise computing are also using the same cloud infrastructure concept. A data center comprises of racks of servers. These are connected through network fabrics with optical connections for longer distances and copper for short distance. Each rack consists of multiple chassis or drawers, as shown in the pictures in the left. Each drawer can be a compute drawer, a memory drawer, or a storage drawer. The compute drawer has memory and storage needed to act as a compute server. A storage or memory drawer may have compute elements, but is used primarily for storage or memory. Each server in the rack is a single domain or a node and typically contained in a chassis or drawer. This can be a single CPU socket system or typically multiple CPU sockets connected through cache coherent links. The interconnects at that level are CPU to CPU symmetric coherency links, such as UPI, if you have a symmetric multiprocessor system, abbreviated as SMP. It can be memory links, it can be PCI Express, abbreviated as PCIe, and it can also be Compute Express Link, which is abbreviated as CXL. These are known as LoadStore interconnects, which are very tightly coupled. We'll discuss more about these and the relationship with fabrics in a little bit. Each server connects to the networking fabric through a NIC. Increasingly, smart NICs are being deployed to help offload the compute complex with networking as well as other infrastructure tasks. The fundamental challenge is to treat the data center as a computer, whether it is compute, memory, storage, or any other resource. We get to warehouse scale efficiency if we develop the proper interconnect infrastructure, and we can move resources or tasks around seamlessly and securely. This will result in better power efficiency, better performance, and overall better total cost of ownership or TCO. We are making good strides towards that goal from an interconnect perspective, but we still have a long way to go. Now the graph here is from IDC and shows the explosion of data. It is often said that data is the new oil. Some of the drivers for this explosion of data are cloud computing, 5G, a lot of data coming from the sensors, automotive, Internet of Things, etc. Applications are demanding ever aggressive time to gain insights in real time in this large data sets. Now, as the data volume grows and workload requirements shift to address new business opportunities, that puts new levels of pressure on the underlying infrastructure. We have seen our customers struggle with these new challenges at scale. How do we ensure a trusted, stable, and reliable experience can be really challenging? Our workloads are changing dynamically. They're impacting performance, memory, and storage needs. This is resulting in stranded or overtaxed resources and the inefficient use of data center capacity. For example, a server may have unused memory, whereas another server could have used more memory to service an application that has a large memory need. We have to meet these scaling challenges, whether it is latency, whether it is bandwidth, whether it is capacity, All of these are important to meet the customer needs. The explosion of data is leading to rapid innovations. We have to move the data faster. We have to store more data. We have to process all of that data quickly, seamlessly, efficiently, and securely. And also we have to determine where in the storage hierarchy to store the data as it is coming in, and depending on what level of processing it has undergone. Now, in each of these aspects, interconnects play a critical role in the compute continuum. Let me switch gears a bit and talk about some of my taxonomy of different interconnects and identify some of their key characteristics and differences as shown in the table here. I've deliberately kept out client-specific interconnects like USB, as well as on-package and on-die interconnects in keeping with the scope of my presentation. I would broadly categorize the wired interconnect world into two categories: latency tolerant versus latency sensitive. The fundamental reason stems from the scale in which they're deployed. Networking interconnects, be it one of the flavors of Ethernet, InfiniBand, or Omnipath, they need to scale in connectivity to hundreds of thousands of nodes at the data center level. They lead the speed transition, hence they have to be latency tolerant. In contrast, the broad class of load store IO are latency sensitive. The examples are PCI Express, CXL, CPU to CPU cache coherent link, or any memory interconnect. These are used by processing entities to access memory directly, where achieving the lowest latency is critical from a performance perspective. These interconnects need to scale to hundreds of lanes in a cost-effective and power-efficient manner. Hence, they do not lead in the speed transitions. In fact, these interconnects had to do major innovations with the 64 gig PAM4 transition to keep the latency increase close to zero. Let us look into some of the key protocol level characteristics of the load store interconnect. A typical two-socket server, which is inside a drawer, is shown on the right-hand side. Each CPU is connected with DRAM. Two CPUs are connected with an SMP cache coherent link, which is based on PCIe 5. Each socket can be connected to multiple PCIe ports. All the accelerators, SSDs, NICs, etc. are connected through PCI Express. With CXL, each PCIe connector can connect to either a PCIe card or a CXL card. Retimers are optionally used on the board for longer channel reach. PCI Express has established itself as the PHY of choice in this load store interconnect world. As shown in the diagram, all three protocols run on PCI Express PHY. Now let's look at the evolution of PCI Express, the underlying interconnect technology driving the different types of load store IO interconnect. PCI Express debuted with the release of PCIe 1.0 specification in 2003. Since then, it has evolved through 5 generations, currently at its 6th generation, as shown in the table here. We double the data rate every generation while maintaining full backward compatibility, again, as shown in the table as well as the diagram on the right-hand side. Since PCIe has been evolving in a cost-effective, scalable, power-efficient, and fully backward compatible manner, it has become the ubiquitous IO across the entire compute continuum. Everything from PC, handheld, workstation, server, cloud, enterprise, HPC, embedded, IoT, automotive, you name it. They have all PCI Express as the IO interconnect. You have one stack, one silicon that is capable of working seamlessly across multiple form factors across this entire compute continuum. Different widths for different types of devices are there. So you got everything from by 1, by 2, by 4, by 8, by 16. Full backward compatibility ensures that a by 16 PCI Gen 5 seamlessly interoperates with a by 1 Gen 1 device. We have multiple PCI devices that are leading this transition: networking, different types of XPUs, GPUs, IPUs, all of those are leading those transitions. PCI Express supports multiple protocols through its PHY, as we saw in the earlier slide. The ones with coherency and memory semantics are the leading users for this higher data rate transition. Since the compute capability keeps increasing within a given power envelope, in keeping with Moore's law and Dennard scaling, the demand on the IO bandwidth is also increasing accordingly. Let us talk about why we need CXL as a new class of interconnect. The picture on the top shows the system level view with PCI Express only. Memory attached to the CPU, such as DRAM, can be mapped as coherent memory. That the data consistency is guaranteed by hardware. Memory attached to a PCI Express device, if any, can also be mapped to system memory, but it is mapped as memory mapped IO space, which cannot be cached in the system. So the memory attached to the CPU is different in its semantics than the memory attached on a PCI Express link. When the CPU wants to access DRAM memory, it can simply cache the data and access the data from its local cache. And later on, it has to do a write back if it has updated the data. Now, memory attached onto an IO device, like a PCI Express device, it cannot be cached. So when a CPU has to access it, the load or store access always happens at the device. When an IO device needs to access system memory, such as the memory in the DRAM, it sends the memory access transaction, whether it is a read or a write, across the PCI Express link as a direct memory access DMA. Root port performs the protocol translation between the IO world, which is the producer consumer semantics, and the coherency world, as the IO device working model is different than the ordering model of the cache coherency semantics. Now, the producer-consumer ordering model works really well for a wide range of IO devices, especially when performing bulk transfers, such as those involved with the traditional storage or moving data in or out of a networking interface. We definitely want to preserve that for those usages. However, for accelerators that want to do fine-grained sharing of data with the processor, the PCIe mechanism needs to be augmented with the enhancements that is shown on the second diagram below. We want to be able to map the device's memory into the cacheable memory, which is shown as memory load store. This way, these devices do not need to DMA in and out of the memory when the data needs to move between the CPU and the device. Now, similarly, the memory that is attached to the device can be mapped to the system as cacheable or write-back memory. This can be used for memory expansion or even to map the device memory into the system memory space for efficient access. With CXL, we enable heterogeneous computing and disaggregation. Memory resources anywhere in the system can be shared efficiently between these computing elements due to the memory and coherency semantics that is there with CXL. As a result, we get enhanced movement of operands and results. Further, we can use CXL for memory bandwidth and memory capacity expansion, supporting memory tiering across different memory types. CXL is an open industry standard with 150 plus member companies. All CPU, GPU, and memory storage vendors are in the consortium. There is tremendous momentum in the ecosystem with several interop and product announcements. In short, CXL is poised to be a game changer in the industry. Compute Express Link is defined ground up to address the challenges in the evolving compute landscape by making both heterogeneous computing as well as different types of memory efficient. CXL is built on top of PCI infrastructure and leverages PCI Express. It overlays the caching and memory protocols on top of the existing PCI protocols. All three protocols run on PCI PHY and channels as shown in the picture to the right. CXL.io is the IO part of the stack. This is almost identical to PCI Express. We use it for device discovery, configuration, register access, interrupts, virtualization, and most importantly, the bulk DMA transfers with producer consumer semantics. CXL.io is a mandatory protocol in CXL. What this means for storage is we can leverage the existing PCI services and management infrastructure, including NVM Express. CXL.cache protocol is optional for a device. It allows a device to cache system memory in a coherent and low latency manner. CXL.memory protocol is also optional for a device. It allows processor as well as other CXL devices which have got CXL.cache semantics to access the device attached memory coherently. Latency is a critical component to ensure system performance. So what kind of latency are we targeting? We are expecting latencies in the range of existing symmetric cache coherency links like our ultrapath interconnect or UPI for cache and memory traffic. The specification provides guidance in terms of expected latency. For example, the recommended latency for a Snoop mesh to the response pin to pin is 50 nanoseconds for CXL.CAS traffic. The latency on a memory read to data return pin to pin is 80 nanoseconds for HBM or DDR type memory. If some other slower memory is used, then a reporting mechanism is provided so that the system performance is not adversely affected, as the software can map that particular memory into the different type of applications that can tolerate a little bit of higher latency. For a CPU load to use latency, we expect that to be significantly less than 200 nanoseconds, which would be, again, a lot less than half of a comparable PCI Express access. CXL is an asymmetric protocol. The protocol flows and message classes are different between the host side and the device side. This is a conscious decision to keep the protocol simple and the implementation easy for devices. Host processors have their proprietary home agent functionality as shown on the picture, which basically orchestrates cache coherency in the system. Home agent is very dependent on the underlying microarchitecture. CXL just abstracts the caching functionality through a simple set of commands confirming to the MESI protocol. MESI stands for modified, exclusive, shared, and invalid. As a result, the CXL.CAS implementation on the device side is significantly simplified. Similarly, memory access commands with built-in capability to store metadata or retrieve metadata, such as directory information, is done on the CXL.MEM side. And this basically significantly simplifies the memory side of the protocol for implementation. Memory devices just don't need to understand anything about the cache coherency flows. This asymmetry has helped us tremendously to ensure backward compatibility without stifling performance or innovation as we move forward. Now let's look into some of the usage models that CXL enables us to have. So this is some of the examples that are shown. There are three types of devices, namely type 1, type 2, and type 3, as shown from the left to the right. Now, an example of a type 1 devices could be a SmartNIC or an accelerator. It uses the .io and .cas semantics. Now, IO is used for the bulk transfers, and caching is used for things such as advanced atomic support or things like partition global address space ordering and enforcement. Now, there in PGAS enforcement, instead of waiting for a read completion before launching the next write on the IO side, the SmartNIC can prefetch those cache lines, and that prefetch can happen out of order, and they will be completed in order in the local cache. Type 2 examples are GP, GPU, and dense computation, where all three protocols are used. Hence, the accelerators and host processors, they work very closely. There is no need to hand off entire data structures and results. Only those that are used will be cached, and the cache coherency ensures global data visibility. Last but not the least is the memory buffers, which is basically of interest, primary interest for this audience. Now, given that the SerDes is very bandwidth efficient on a per pin basis, we can use CXL for memory bandwidth and memory capacity expansion. This also enables heterogeneous memory, including persistent memory and the multiple memory hierarchy, since each of the memory controller is with the device. Also of importance is that type 2 can be deployed to some of the traditional memory type devices to deliver even compelling value proposition that we will see in a few slides. Now let's take a look into what we get with CXL 2.0. Now CXL 1.1 was based on a single node. With CXL 2.0, what we are able to do is pool resources across multiple nodes. So CXL basically 2.0 enables us to move from a drawer level to a sub-rack or rack level. This is shown in the diagram on the right-hand side. You got multiple hosts in the diagram that have accesses to multiple devices. The assignment of devices to the hosts can change over time, and that depends on the demand. For those, you have to have the hot plug flows, which are defined again by the 2.0 specification. CXL 2.0 defines a standardized fabric manager to orchestrate the resource allocation across multiple hosts. Each host can have its dedicated resources plus access to those pooled resources. CXL 2.0 further expands to define memory devices that can be simultaneously pooled across multiple hosts, up to 16 hosts, as shown in the diagram. This allows for partial allocation of these devices to the node. So the color coding there shows the current assignment of the device or part of the device to a given node. CXL 2.0 architects persistent flows to work seamlessly with Fabrics. It also defines software API for devices to enable system software to manage the devices. 2.0 defines security enhancements on top of the device TLB that existed before. These are device authentication, link encryption, and we also provide security through the switches. In short, CXL 2.0 is a game changer. It enables construction of disaggregated system to improve resource utilization in order to deliver significant TCO and power efficient performance improvements in the data center. Now let's look into what are the implications of CXL on the memory and the storage segment. At the heart of it, CXL provides a media independent memory interface with coherency extensions. It does so while preserving all the PCI Express functions and PCI Express services. For example, the device management of PCIe can be fully leveraged, including NVM Express. The picture on the top right shows the memory hierarchy. We have load store semantics that covers DRAM, NRAM, MRAM, and storage class memories using load store semantics. What CXL enables to do is move the storage class memory into the cacheable space. NAND is accessed through different semantics using files, objects, blocks connected through PCIe. These two semantics are different as shown by the semantics wall in the diagram. CXL enables the storage class memory to be mapped to the cacheable space. As a result, CXL can span the entire hierarchy as shown on the picture on the top right. And you can also see the same thing with the picture on the bottom right. One can connect to DRAM memory using CXL.memory semantics. Storage class memory can be accessed through both CXL.memory for cacheable access and CXL.io, and possibly using NVM Express infrastructure for the DMA type of accesses. NAND can similarly be accessed by either mechanism. CXL enables new compute and memory architectures with the memory and coherency extension. One can extend memory hierarchy to include storage class memory and even NAND using CXL. As a result, CXL provides additive bandwidth and capacity over traditional DIMMs across multiple types of memory and multiple memory hierarchies without each of them interfering with the other. The other advantage of CXL, which is a major one, is the PCIe form factor. We are no longer constrained by considerations such as consuming a precious DIMM slot while remaining power constrained in the 15-watt envelope that exists for a DIMM slot. We have lots of choices of form factors, and we can enable higher power profiles like the 25 plus watts. And the benefits from leveraging PCI Express does not stop there. What we get, as we talked about earlier, is standard device discovery and configuration management, software leverage like PCI Express driver, HCPI mechanisms like heterogeneous memory attribute table, HMAT, to describe the properties of the type of memory that you have. So that way software can figure out which application to map to what type of memory depending on the needs, DMA engine or data move, and IO virtualization from the PCI Express side of things. Now let us look at some applications of CXL in the memory and storage segments. As discussed before, DRAM memory can be behind CXL. Since memory bandwidth and capacity increases linearly with the core count, and different customers have different needs for the core count, one has to build multiple platforms with different number of DIMM slots today if you have a wide range of variation in the core count. However, with CXL, one can envision a common platform as shown in the right, where CXL can be used to provide additional DRAM bandwidth and capacity. Thus, one can decouple compute from the traditional DIMM memory bandwidth and capacity by using CXL to make up for the extra demand. CXL offers bandwidth scaling with width and frequency. So unlike traditional memory, one can allocate different bandwidth with the same capacity by changing the link width and frequency. As we had stated earlier, PCI Express data rates double every 2 to 3 years while staying within the power, performance, channel reach, and cost profile. For example, today you can get to 32 gigabytes per second per direction by using a BY8 Gen 5. You get the same bandwidth with a BY4 if it is operating at 64 gigatransfers per second in PCI 6.0. CXL.memory efficiency is in the 90% range, which means that you pretty much realize most of that bandwidth. Now, if you consider a BY8 at 64 gigatransfers per second, you can get 64 gigabytes per second per direction. And a BY16 at 64 gigatransfers per second nets you 128 gigabytes per second per direction. That's a lot of bandwidth with the best power efficiency that exists in the industry. The other benefit of CXL is pin efficiency. DDR requires a lot of pins. The pin growth in CPU packages by increasing the number of memory channels to sustain core performance is not going to be a long-term sustainable model. This is where CXL can help deliver more bandwidth on a per pin basis. You do get higher latency with CXL when compared with the local DRAM access. This is inherent given that a SerDes interface versus a parallel bus-based interface. However, CXL access is similar in latency to a DRAM access on the remote CPU socket in an SMP system. And the NUMA domains are very well established in multi-socket coherency today. So I don't see any issue with the higher latency of the CXL attached memory. The question is, how much memory stays in traditional DIMM versus how much of it migrates to the CXL. With time, we will see probably more and more memory migrate to CXL. I can envision systems where you can use on-package memory for low latency and high bandwidth, and use CXL memory for the instead of any of the traditional DIMMs. That might take a few years, but I can see that coming. One can even have a memory hierarchy where the on-package memory acts as a memory side cache or as a level 4 cache. Backward compatibility ensures interoperability, unlike what we get in the DDR world, and that offers a compelling interconnect for the memory to migrate to. Now here, let's explore some of the innovations that are possible in the memory and storage space with CXL beyond the memory bandwidth and capacity expansion capability. Scalable NVDIMM style, type 3 memory with built-in acceleration capability. Cacheable persistent memory, computational storage and memory with host memory sharing, and new cluster-wide memory and storage tier. Now, let's look into the first two of those four, which is the scalable NVDIMM and cacheable persistent memory with built-in acceleration. Now, it makes perfect sense for me to move. It makes perfect sense to me that we will move NVDIMM to CXL. As shown in the picture, we can have storage class memory such as NAND backup DRAM hosted by the CXL device, which provides the non-volatile characteristics. One can even envision deploying a DMA engine to back up memory from other DIMM slots. Now, the advantage is that this will be hot pluggable and hence it will be serviceable. It can be multi-headed and connect to multiple hosts for failover access. We do not have to consume a precious DIMM slot, and we are not constrained by the form factor or power constraints. Persistent memory regions behind CXL can also be cacheable now with CXL attached memory. All of this while we maintain the hot plug serviceability and multi-headed access for availability. One can even build very large capacity memory by having DRAM as the memory side cache for the entire or a large chunk of the storage class memory that can be mapped as cacheable memory space. And we can use the HMAT table mechanism that exists in ACPI and also do the interleaving of that type of memory accordingly. Now, the CXL devices in both these types of memories can be augmented with DMA engines for efficiently moving the data and deploying the accelerators for local processing of the data. One of the compelling new use cases is that of computational storage. Now, imagine putting an accelerator in front of the memory for near memory compute. So functions such as compression, encryption, computation for reliability, such as RAID 6 kind of computation, compaction for key value store, search engine, vector processing. All of these can be done and can be very compelling for a lot of applications like artificial intelligence, machine learning, etc. DMA engines can be deployed to transfer data to where it is needed next. This can be, use standard drivers and management framework that we have developed over the years in PCI Express, so that we are not starting from scratch. One can also envision where the storage class memory can be mapped to coherent address space with a local DRAM acting as the cache, with some smart analytics used to prefetch the data from the SCM to the DRAM for improved latency and also for pre-processing of the data. Now, the picture on the right shows how one can build a very efficient system by using CXL with these different types of memory. So you got a mixture of memory capacity, memory bandwidth expansion, and you also have the computational storage and memory with the host memory sharing in a seamless manner. The bottom line is this: with a simple set of .cache and .mem enhancement, CXL is enabling us to build on top of the existing PCI Express infrastructure and services. This offers a very effective and compelling interconnect. It enables our systems to scale with heterogeneous processing and memory with shared cacheable memory space that is accessible to all using the same kind of mechanism. This is a good slide from Balint Fleischer in the 2021 SRC roundtable on the memory scaling that I have leveraged with some of the thoughts that I have. It offers a view of how to treat the storage class memory as a byte addressable data store with storage style data management and protection services while being accessible through the load store semantics of CXL. So some of the characteristics are going to be that this will be load store access with cacheability options. It will be scalable to petabytes and beyond. The access latency will be low, as we talked about before, less than a microsecond. And there will be storage functions such as replication, snapshot, cluster-wide data sharing. This is going to enable a lot more sharing of the data across the rack level. So continuing on the thought around some of these future directions, CXL enables us to extend load store interconnect across multiple hosts. This is foundational since load store semantics is built on the fundamental notion of captive resources, whether it is processing or IO or memory or storage inside each of the hosts. That's how it was built. So for example, one can have a drawer with a pool of memory and not have to over provision with CXL the memory that is allotted to each compute drawer. This will result in cost and power savings while enabling performance as long as we keep the latency under check. Thus, in addition to fabrics, though to a much smaller scale, load store IO can extend beyond the node or beyond the rack chassis into the rack level. Now, this is essential to realize the data center of the future. And one of the key enabler there is effectively composable, disaggregated infrastructure at the rack level, and potentially this can extend to across racks. The vision is the picture on the top right. We have a pool of compute nodes, memory pools, a pool of XPUs for acceleration, a pool of storage. By the way, memory and storage that is smart or that has got some processing capability, an infrastructure processing unit that acts as the connection to the networking fabric. Each of these entities are connected through a load store interconnect fabric such as CXL. So we have heterogeneous compute, heterogeneous memory with multiple tiered hierarchy, storage, networking fabric resources connected through high bandwidth, low latency CXL load store interconnect, delivering almost identical performance per watt as independent servers. Going forward, we can enhance this usage model with shared memory, message passing, remote atomic semantics among these nodes in the CXL fabric so that we can get even better performance for a lot of the applications. Now, in order to accomplish these goals, we need to nurture the synergy between the networking fabrics and the load store interconnect so that we can interoperate seamlessly and provide the same look and feel to end users with, of course, different performance characteristics. It's well understood that CXL will have much higher, much better performance characteristics. So, for example, we could deploy portals that are native in the load store IO interconnect for Atomic. So portals can be deployed natively into load store IO interconnect. That concept can move from the fabric world into the load store world. Shared memory through software coherency across multiple nodes is well solved in the fabrics with constructs such as SHMEM that we can expect to leverage. So going forward, expect the boundaries to be fungible. That may change with the intended application. The areas where you can have synergy are things that we are already taking advantage of: Fabric Manager, multi-head, multi-domain, Atomic support, persistence flows, smart NICs with optimized flows to access system memory without involving the host, VM migration, so on and so forth. We have a lot of challenges. We need to ensure that we are taking the learnings from our initial CXL implementations into account as we move forward. One of the important challenges is performance, namely latency and bandwidth. These are two sides of the coin, and we need to make sure that we stay true to the low latency. Now, let's talk through some of the numbers. Access latency of direct attached CXL device for load to use is less than 200 nanoseconds, as we had talked about before. This is similar to a UPI access. Now, if you go through a single level of switch, we'll probably add between 100 to 200 nanoseconds. Low latency switches are absolutely critical. I believe it will be closer to 100 nanoseconds, having done the microarchitectural breakdown myself. While not ideal, it's okay for a tiered memory and for pooled accelerators. We have made NUMA work with SMP multiprocessing, and we can deploy those to enable even larger scale pooling at the rack level. The other aspect is bandwidth. It depends on the fan out and the connectivity. 128 lane switch is a medium sized switch, which is very doable, especially in the advanced process node that we are seeing today. Now that can allow one to connect up to 16 nodes with 16 accelerators or memory drives using by 4 links. At 64 gigabit per second, that's 256 gigabit per second or 32 gigabytes per second of bandwidth per link per direction. Now with multi-headed device support, and naturally all the hosts have multiple ports, we can easily aggregate bandwidth when needed through multiple switches. So a rack's worth of resources can be fairly accessible with 16 nodes and 16 devices. You can pretty much access an entire rack through a single level of switching. Now, if we take it to 2 levels of switches, the connectivity can go up as a square, and latency increases by another 100 nanoseconds. These are round trip latency numbers, right? So now we can cover multiple racks. Of course, we need to start implementing things on a smaller scale, understand where the various issues are, and we need to work through those before we embark on such a large scale. Basically, we adopt the policy of crawl, walk, and then run. But what I'm trying to paint here is a picture that this journey of scalability will continue, and this is a scalable interconnect. CXL will scale, in fact, to beyond the drawer level or the chassis level into the rack level and beyond. Now, with increased nodes under the load store paradigm, one has to be careful about the blast radius. Unlike networking, we cannot have a software-based recovery mechanism for pooled resources. So the system needs to have an acceptable fit, which is the failure in time, or the number of failures that we see in a billion hours. So we have to design the shared parts with the lowest fit possible. We have to ensure proper containment as well as quality of service to ensure that one node's failure does not impact another node, even if they are pooling the resources together. And power efficiency needs to be the first order consideration to ensure that we are keeping the power efficient performance intact. As usual, the scaling with Moore's law and the not scaling of the challenges that we need to continue to surmount. The other question is, where do we deploy copper versus optical as the data rates increase while maintaining our KPIs? We need to keep looking out as to wherever that crossover point happens and make sure that we are ready for that transition. Last but not the least, software. Everything from management to orchestration to resource allocation to RAS, migration, all of that. We just need to leverage what exists, and we need to provide a seamless experience to our users. Now, in summary, we have a lot of opportunities to shape the data center and the compute paradigm of the future by working collaboratively across multiple disciplines, multiple organizations, and together we can overcome the challenges as they may come and keep the virtuous cycle of innovation going. Thank you all very much. Hope you are staying safe. Please take a moment to read this session. Thank you.